50 years spreading Krishna consciousness. And it is our good fortune that today we get to hear from His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj. So please let us loudly chant Hari Bol 3 times in honor of welcoming Maharaj. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki jai.
There we go. Thank you all for, well, Haribol. So, thank you all for joining us. Most of our members are away in New York right now. Well, actually, they're not in New York. They're on their way back from New York because we had this wonderful festival down Fifth Avenue called Rath Yatra, in which Lord Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra were taken down the street that Prabhupada considered to be the most important street in the world, which is Fifth Avenue in New York. So there's a whole bus full of devotees, maybe 30, 40, I don't know how many devotees. That's why there's so many cars parked here. And they went there, and I decided to stay back to be with all of you. So today we're going to take up an introductory topic, which is called Guru Tattva. So, Tattva means something, well, something that is irrevocable, something that it's a category, sometimes it's described as a category, sometimes it's described as a truth, but let's just take it as a category in this particular moment. So it's called Guru Tattva. What is a guru, how to find one, and what to do when one finds one. That's interesting topics. So, first we'll chant Jai Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balaba Giri Badadagode Gopi Jana Balaba Giri Badadagode Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Banachare Yamuna Tera Banachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bhagavate Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bhagavate Jai Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravatakacharya. Also Teta Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace Abhaya Chalananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem say kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Syamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Maturdam Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamudamai Ki Jai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda, Hari Hari Bol, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya. Putale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Chinamani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharni Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschacha Deshatarni Om Ganati Miranda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Jaksur Unmeditam Yena Tasmai Shigurveda Maha. So this is rather an introductory talk called Guru Tattva. So how to distinguish who is a guru, what type of guru is there, how do you find one, what do you do when you find one. Okay, let's start with different types of gurus. There are different varieties of gurus. Now the first meaning we're going to take here is someone who is a teacher. And the teacher may not be a spiritual person, may or may not be a spiritual person. Let's take the case of Dronacharya, who is teaching Arjuna. Here you see Arjuna focused on the eye of the bird, famous story. So he's teaching, but he wasn't the guru in a spiritual sense of Arjuna. But still, he was a guru in the sense of being a teacher. The next type of guru is called a Kula guru. And the Kula guru may or may not be spiritual. He may be a ritualistic Brahmin who just does certain rituals, or he may be a very spiritual person. The Kula guru gives the boy his Gayatri mantra and performs sacrifices, but he may not be absorbed in the absolute, either in Brahman or in Krishna consciousness. That's a family guru. And I'm sure those of you from India know what I'm talking about. Another type of guru, very interesting, is called the Vartma Padarshaka guru. That's a spiritual guru, but you don't really take him or her necessarily on the absolute platform, because that means someone who just shows you the path. An example would be Suniti. Now, I don't know if you know the story about Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj had a father, Uttanapada, because we all have fathers, hopefully. Hopefully we know who our fathers are. And his father had two wives, Suniti and Suruchi. The word Suruchi means like good taste. In other words, obviously he was more attached to Suruchi than Suniti. Niti means rules and regulations, someone who's proper. So Suniti was much more proper, but she wasn't the favored wife. So Dhruva Maharaj, he goes to his father and he tries to sit on his father's lap. And Suruchi has a son, Uttama, and she says, no way, you cannot sit on your father's lap unless you're my son. And this poor father, feeling so henpecked, He didn't say anything. He said, oh my God, what if she gets angry with me? Sometimes you men may experience that, and you're afraid of your wives. What if she gets angry with me? So he just sat there, and Dhruva started crying. And also, his stepmother, that's Suruchi, said to him, you know, you have to take birth again, and you become my son, then you can sit on your father's lap. And you may have to worship Vishnu to do that. So she also gave him some pretty good instructions. So then when he went to his mother, he said, what should I do? And she said, there's nothing you can do. My co-wife is more favored by your father. But that's pretty good advice. Worship Vishnu. I think worshiping Vishnu was a good idea. So Dhruva asks, where is Vishnu? And of course, we know you don't have to go to the forest to see Vishnu or to come in contact with Vishnu. In fact, Vishnu's in our hearts. Ishwara sarvabhutanam hridesha arjuna tishtati Ramayan sarvabhutani yantra rudani maya, as Bhagavad Gita teaches us, 18th chapter. Krishna's in our hearts. And the way we can come in touch with Krishna and Vishnu is by what? Nobody knows? Chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. But at that time, she was thinking, he is in, that is Vishnu, is in the forest. Because the sages generally went to the forest and they got away from normal society so they could meditate and chant in peace. So, and you find this often, that even when someone wanted to find God in the Vedic system, traditionally, historically, they would leave the city and go to the forest. Very, very common. So when the kings would retire, take vanaprastha or take sannyas, actually vanaprastha, they would go to the forest and wouldn't sit down in their castle just chanting Hare Krishna at that particular point. So his mother is, Dhruva's mother, Suniti, was his Vartma Pradarshika Guru, one who first shows you the path. Okay? For example, you know, I had a devotee who gave me a Krishna book. So in one sense, that devotee, that was years ago, 1969, before any of you were born here. He gave me a Krishna book, and that, in that sense, you know, he acted as guru. Although the relationship's not eternal, it's a temporary thing. So that's a Vartma to Pradarshika Guru. The next type of guru is called a Shiksha Guru. The word Shiksha means instructions. So the Shiksha Guru may be someone who you have an absolute eternal relationship with, or it may be someone who's just giving you relevant instructions for a particular time, place, and circumstance. But it's a spiritual guru. For example, in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Prabhupada is everybody's Siksha Guru. Now, he's not everybody's Diksha Guru, which is the next category. Prabhupada initiated something like 5,000 disciples when he was on the planet. And after Prabhupada left, he wanted his disciples to initiate. However, Prabhupada's Siksha is the most important or foundational principle for the teachings of the Krishna consciousness movement. How Prabhupada outlined our sadhana program, how Prabhupada presented the philosophy, Prabhupada's understanding of the Siddhanta, it means perfect conclusion, is actually the very foundation of the Krishna consciousness movement. No matter who one is initiated by, then one follows Prabhupada's Siksha. So then we have the Diksha Guru, and that's, of course, for myself, that's His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And I don't know if you can see that bald-headed guy on the right. That's me in a previous incarnation. Hard to believe, isn't it? And a picture was taken in Los Angeles, and I would sit behind Prabhupada as he was chanting. I remember that particular day, just watching Prabhupada play the gong, and then at a particular point he played the cartels, and just thinking, this is so beautiful, because Prabhupada, being a pure devotee coming from the spiritual world, every action was like practically a choreographed action. Every action that Prabhupada made was out of love for Krishna. That's a pure devotee. You know, all of us, we have so many actions or involuntary actions of our body that have nothing to do with love for Krishna. But every single movement that Prabhupada made was actually out of complete, absolute love for Krishna. And so I was sitting behind him and just going, wow. I was just overawed seeing Prabhupada like that. And of course, Prabhupada gave his disciples Diksha. Diksha means Diksha, to be freed from the material entanglement. Like we have the word Kshatriya, protected from the material entanglement. And Divya Jnana, given transcendental knowledge, so one is freed from the material entanglement. So there's also another type of guru called the sannyas guru. None of you have to worry about that. We do not recommend it. So, for example, I have a sannyas guru, which is one of my godbrothers, Sridharananda Maharaj, and I'm very respectful to him, but it's not an eternal relationship, other than the fact that all of Prabhupada's followers and disciples do have a place in the spiritual world. Prabhupada said there is an ISKCON in the spiritual world. I don't know if it's called ISKCON. I don't think it would be called ISKCON. But I think the devotees who associate with each other and serve Krishna in association, they get to associate with each other in the spiritual world, provided they all go to the same place. Now, what do I mean by same place? There's different places in the spiritual world. If someone is a devotee of Lord Ram, then he goes to Ayodhya in the spiritual world. If someone is a devotee of Dwarkadish, he goes to Dwarka in the spiritual world. If someone is a devotee of Krishna in Vrindavan, he goes to Raj in the spiritual world, Goloka. So it depends. It depends. So, different types of gurus. So sannyas, of course, sannyas guru is a formality. In fact, in certain cases, we have devotees, well, one devotee in particular I can think of, who gave himself sannyas. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, and with a picture of his guru in front of him. So it's a formality, it's a social formality. So it doesn't mean that if someone's a sannyasi, they're more advanced than others. Try to understand. Real sannyas means to renounce the fruits of action. Yat karoshi yadashnashi yajahoshi dadasyat yatapashashi kundiya atat kurishwa mardarpanam. To give everything to Krishna. So, Prabhupada, as far as the leaders of the movement, Prabhupada was around. They could be householders, sannyasis, brahmacharis, like that. There's no distinction insofar as spiritual advancement is concerned. There's no gender distinction. There's no racial distinction. There's no even age distinction. I mean, look at the four Kumaras. They weren't sannyasis, they were brahmacharis. And they're the head of one particular sampradaya. So sannyas is more or less a formality, although it's an important formality because people take vows at that particular point of complete dedication. I took sannyas in 1978, after Prabhupada left this planet, to dedicate my life to serving Prabhupada. So that was how I saw a sannyas, not simply a free meal ticket, you know, or being able to go around people's houses and people just serving you. To me, it meant complete dedication to Prabhupada's service. So the question is, why do we need a spiritual guru? And the answer to that is an epistemological question. How do we know what we know? Now, in this material world, we know what we know. Like they say, seeing is believing. You got direct perception. Like you probably know you're in this room right now. And if you don't know that, we have a psychiatrist in the house. There he is. Raise your hand so everyone can see. So if you if you don't know you're in the room and you don't know you're listening to class, then you need a psychiatrist. But there's certain things that are beyond the realm of our experience. And those things are the spiritual realities, such as who are we, where do we come from, where do we go at the time of death, who is God, how is everything created. So this is, epistemology means, how do you know what you know? It's a study, actually, of how you know what you know. So, in order to answer that question, we have to understand our own faults in understanding things in this world. This is, I don't know if you can see all the things in the picture there. That we have faults, we have imperfect senses, we have a tendency to cheat, right? We're an illusion, and we make mistakes. So we can't really rely on ourselves for spiritual information. And so if we're really interested in finding out the truth, then we may approach Krishna. Or we may want to know what the absolute truth is. Actually, there's different people who come to Krishna consciousness. One of them is one who is looking for the absolute truth. And so in the Katha Upanishad it says, this realization, my dear boy, that is the absolute truth, cannot be acquired by logic. It must be spoken by an exceptionally qualified spiritual master to a knowledgeable disciple. Tadvini pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. One has to find someone who knows the truth, someone who has experienced the truth, someone who has realized the truth, not just theoretical knowledge. And that person is the spiritual guru. So, let's talk about the meaning of the word guru. Of course, some people take the meaning, and which is actually a real meaning, as heavy, like you see here. But not heavy, heavy like this guy, but heavy with spiritual knowledge. Like you see, Srila Prabhupada published, how many books is it? It must be 60, 80 books in his lifetime. A complete compendium of Vedic knowledge, or phenomenal and noumenal knowledge. And the Guru is a teacher of that knowledge. And he's considered heavy because he cuts through illusion. In other words, Prabhupada's words are so heavy that when you read them, you realize, oh my God, I'm in Maya. I'm an illusion. I was thinking this, but actually this is the truth. But in addition to having words that cut through illusion, he has to set a good example. Like Prabhupada would often say, example is better than precept. So of course we have in the Bhagavad Gita all the precepts, the basic philosophy of Krishna consciousness is there. But when we examine Prabhupada's life, we can see Bhagavad Gita in action. That's why when people come to the Krishna consciousness movement, one of the first things I recommend is reading the Lilamrita, the biography written about His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So you can see what it means to follow the Bhagavad Gita. It's not just theoretical knowledge. So the word acharya means one who acts nicely. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, yad yad acharya shreshtas tat tat eveta rojanaha. As a great person acts, others will follow. And sometimes we find how a bad person acts, although if he's a leader, others will follow. We find that in the political sphere in America right now. Anyway, won't get into that subject matter. So he leads by example. So how to ascertain that you've come across someone who is a bona fide guru? So Srila Prabhupada actually tells us when he quotes from the Mundaka Upanishad, a very interesting verse, and Prabhupada says the guru is the representative of Krishna. So there are symptoms of who is a guru. The general symptoms are described in the Vedas. It's a very important verse from the Mundaka Upanishad. Tadviganartam sa gurum eva vigachet samit pani shrochiyam brahmanishtam. So this verse states that a guru must come in disciplic succession. There's 4 disciplic successions. We're members of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, coming from Lord Brahma. There's the Lakshmi Sampradaya, Rudra Sampradaya, and the Kumara Sampradaya. So Brahma Sampradaya, which we're 2 members of, has an unbroken chain of spiritual masters, beginning from Lord Brahma, Narada, Vyasa, etc., like that, down to the present day and age. Of course, before Prabhupada was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, before him was Srila Gaurkashodas Babaji Maharaj, and before him was Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So a guru must, that's the first quality, must come in an unbroken chain of disciplic succession. And he must have heard thoroughly, we're still reading here, about the Vedas from his spiritual master. In other words, he must be repeating everything he heard from his spiritual master in his own words according to time, place, and circumstance. He's not just a parrot, but someone who understands how to apply. Like Srila Prabhupada came to America. He didn't just parrot the words of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Had he done that, nobody would have understood him. Because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was a living encyclopedia. And if any of you read his commentary on the Brahma Samhita, it takes a dictionary in one hand and a headache in your head to try to understand what he's saying. I mean, it took years for me to understand what he was saying. And even Prabhupada at one point said he didn't understand everything his spiritual master was saying, but he sat and listened. So that was the quality. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master was pleased with Srila Prabhupada because he liked to hear. So one must have heard thoroughly and be expert enough to apply things according to time, place. Like New York, Prabhupada came to New York, and he would understood how to adjust things. He even said, chant Hare Krishna and stay high forever. I mean, that's quite an adjustment from what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, really dumbing it down to the people in New York, and Prabhupada just understood perfectly how to present things. Never changed the philosophy for preaching. Never. He didn't change one whit of the Tattva, the Siddhanta, the Ras, or the Bhav, or any of these different items. He presented everything purely, but in our own language. So, and generally, Guru's symptom is that he is a perfect devotee. That's all. So another point is, so Prabhupada doesn't translate every word here, which I'm going to do right now. It's that Samit Pani. That means basically he's a servant of his spiritual master. Even a perfect guru is always a servant of his spiritual master. He's never like an independent guru. Oh, I know more than my spiritual master, or my business is to deviate from Prabhupada's instructions insofar as Prabhupada's preaching instructions. No, he's a servant. And of course, Shrotriya means he's heard nicely, and Brahmanishtam means he doesn't deviate. Nishta. Nishta means like steady without deviation. Brahmanishta means steady in spirituality. So let's hear about a few of those things. Here's the disciplic succession picture, which we talked about a second ago. And as we mentioned, there's 4 sampradayas, which are depicted here. And then we also mentioned he's a servant of his guru. So here's Prabhupada coming on the Jaladuta boat, taking all sorts of austerities, having heart attacks on the boat coming over, being determined to render service to his spiritual master when Prabhupada was quite old, 69, 70. And that's very difficult. And most of you were thinking 69 or 70 is nothing, but I can tell you, it's something. It's really, I couldn't imagine getting on a freighter and crossing the ocean. I just like airplanes. And then determination, like Prabhupada was, to serve his spiritual master. Here's a quote from 4th Canto, 28th chapter, text 50. Similarly, a devoted disciple of the spiritual master would rather die with the spiritual master. This is the quality of a spiritual master, is to be a devoted disciple. That's the point. Than fail to execute the spiritual master's mission as the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes down upon this earth to reestablish the principles of religion. So as representative, the spiritual master also comes to reestablish religious principles. Is the duty of the disciples to take charge of the mission of the spiritual master and execute it properly. Otherwise, the disciple should decide to die along with the spiritual master. In other words, to execute the will of the spiritual master, the disciple should be prepared to lay down his life and abandon all personal considerations. In other words, one should be a disciple to be qualified as a spiritual master. And what does disciple mean? Disciple means discipline. Just like Shisha is the name, Sanskrit name for disciple, Shisha. That comes from the root, the Shash Dhatu. So you have Shastra and Shastra, which come from that word. Shastra means the books, the transcendental literatures. Shastra means the stick, punishment. In conclusion, if the disciple is very serious to execute the mission of the spiritual master, he immediately associates with the Supreme Personality of Godhead by Vani or Vapu. This is the only secret of success in seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada says the only secret of success. Instead of being eager to see the Lord, in some bush of Vrindavan, while at the same time engaging in sense gratification, if one instead sticks to the principle of following the words of the spiritual master, he will see the Supreme Lord without difficulty. Pretty good. Pretty easy. So, in other words, he has heard nicely from his guru, repeats the same message, and is steady. And it doesn't matter what varna he comes from. As Lord Chaitanya says, Kiva viprakir nashi shudra kena noi, ye Krishna tattva veta, se guru hoy, and the translation is, it does not matter whether a person is a Vipra, learned scholar in Vedic wisdom, or is born in a lower family, or is in the renounced order of life. If he is master in the science of Krishna, he is the perfect and bona fide spiritual master. So we're using the gender term he all the time, but actually anyone, he or she, can be guru. If someone knows the science of Krishna, which means practicing, considering oneself a servant of one's spiritual master, and not deviating from that service. No deviation from Krishna consciousness. Of course, there's funny deviations, these are the 4 regulated principles, obviously. But it's more than that. Yeah, romance. Anyway, so, no comment. So, anyway, gambling, meeting, intoxication. And then 24/7 engaged in Krishna consciousness. So when one comes in contact with the Guru, he functions by giving us three aspects of knowledge: Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. The Sambandha Gyan means knowledge, which means basically understanding what we call the different tattvas and the relation. Tattvas means what is the soul, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what are the Supreme Lord's energies, what are the relationships between all these different factors. That's Sambandha Gyan, which is mentioned here, relationships between Krishna and Maya. Jiva and Krishna, Jiva and Maya, and Krishna and Jiva, and also relationship. Maya generally means the material energy, but also can indicate the relationship of the Jiva with the spiritual energy. Vishnu Shakti Para Prokta, Ashetrakya Tata Para, Vidyakarma Sanganya, Tritira Shakti Ishate. There's three energies of the Supreme Personality: material, spiritual, and the Jiva soul. And the reflection of the spiritual energy is the material energy, so the relationships between all these different factors. So that's called ontology. That's a big word you can use to impress people. The nature of all these different factors and the relationships between them. And then the Guru instructs us something called abhideya. In other words, what to do about the knowledge you just got and to make spiritual progress. Abhideya. And then finally, the Guru instructs, when one is ready, about prayojana. Prayojana means the absolute goal, what is perfection. Of course, the Guru may tell you what the absolute goal, what is perfection, but he won't tell you everything about your particular relationship with Krishna until you're on the particular platform, the specific platform. So here's some illustration of that same thing. Here's Sambandha, getting information. There's Krishna coming down through disciplic succession, the information given by Guru, instructing you about the different aspects we mentioned before, and also about the subtle body, the gross body, and the soul. Subtle body is mind, intelligence, and false ego. And then talking about the ultimate goal of going back to God. Well, that's Sambandha, that there is a spiritual world, okay. And then Abhideya, you got the four regulator principles. That's just the beginning. That's just the negative side of Abhideya. Don't do this. Just like in yoga, you have yam and niyam, the first two principles in Hatha Yoga. Yam means restrictions, just like you have the king of restrictions. Who is the king of restrictions? Yama Raj. And if you don't follow certain restrictions, these four, not only will you not be spiritual, but you're going to pay a visit to Yamaraj. That's nice. Does anyone want to see him? As a devotee, yeah, we could see him, but not in his normal workplace. We definitely don't want to see Yamaraj at work. Maybe in his home. So that's Yam. And then Niyam, here's the positive instructions. Whatever you do, whatever offer should be get offered to Krishna. In different ways, you can serve the spiritual master personally, you can distribute books, you can cook for Krishna, you can clean Krishna's temple. There's so many different types of service you can do according to your psychophysical nature. And here's more of them, distributing books, chanting on Harinam, chanting japa, meditating on Krishna, other activities, hearing, even driving for Krishna. You can do any of these things for Krishna. There's no restriction except has to be done for Krishna according to Krishna's directions and according to following the four regulator principles, according to the Guru's directions. The Guru engages someone according to their psychophysical nature. We all have a different nature. That's what we talk sometimes about Varnashram. Anyone's heard about Varnashram before? Chatur Varnam Mayashustam Gunakarma Vibhagasha. The four Varnas, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, each and every one of us, we have a certain type of nature. And in order to be Krishna conscious or execute Krishna consciousness in the sadhana stage, we need to engage according to that nature. Like if someone's a farmer, they should be engaged in farming. And if you try to engage someone in something that's not according to the nature, they're not going to be happy. And eventually, they may not stay in Krishna consciousness. So one of Krishna's arguments with Arjuna in the book Bhagavad Gita is that you're a Kshatriya by nature, and by your nature, you're going to be forced to fight anyway. So you better fight for me. So, and then finally, prayojana, the goal. The goal, of course, is to go back to Godhead, to engage with Krishna in one of the 5 different relationships, actually 4 different relationships. Because even if you have Shanta Ras, there has to be some dasha to go back to the spiritual world. And ultimately serve Krishna at Radha and Krishna in the spiritual world. And as I mentioned before, everyone in ISKCON is Prabhupada's Siksha disciple. His instructions are the ultimate authority. Prabhupada has come down from the spiritual world to write books and instruct us. And Prabhupada said his books are the law books for human society, and at least for the Krishna consciousness movement. And if we're dedicated to Prabhupada's mission, we get Prabhupada's mercy. And our Siksha Gurus and Diksha Gurus guide us in service to Prabhupada and his mission within the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So, summarize, Prabhupada is the primary source of Siksha. His mission is the focal point of our service, and everyone has an eternal connection with him. Everyone in the Krishna consciousness has an eternal connection with him. And more summary, the Diksha and Siksha Gurus must be dedicated to Prabhupada's mission, must have heard nicely from Prabhupada and repeating Prabhupada's instructions nicely, must be fixed 24/7 in Krishna consciousness, no deviation. This is the standard for even Siksha Guru. Must be in a position to give practical guidance to disciples according to disciples' psychophysical nature, which we mentioned before, and must be a realized soul. Now, our Siksha Guru doesn't have to be like an absolutely pure devotee on prema, but at least the qualities of samitpani, shrotriyam, brahmanishtam. That means have heard nicely, be able to repeat according to what he or she has heard, according to time, place, and circumstance. Shrotriyam, samitpani, being a servant of his guru, and brahmanishtam, not deviating from Krishna consciousness, that nishta quality. So the Diksha Guru, just to summarize, he gives the mantra and spiritual name, witnesses the vows of the disciples, and gives permission for disciples to take Siksha from others, and generally the Diksha Guru also gives Siksha. So that's it. So thank you, and Hare Krishna. Does anyone have any questions about this brief presentation? Yes, Nandagopal.
I have few questions, but one, when you were defining sannyasa, you said, and if I heard you correct, renouncing the fruits of your
That real sannyasa, well, if you read Bhagavad Gita, is he who renounced the fruits of activities.
Yeah. So then my
And
question
dedicates them to Krishna. Whoops.
My question is then, would you mind sharing few practical examples in how we can do that and develop that?
Okay.
gradually?
So what are your fruits? Time? Yeah. And let's say you're working in a job. So what are some of the fruits of a job? That's right. So you maintain yourself. Obviously, we're not saying give all the money you make to Krishna and then you just live a poverty-stricken life. No. You maintain yourself, whatever you need. We all have certain material needs as well as spiritual needs. This is really important to understand. Everyone's needs are different than others. In other words, you may have more of a need for comfort than I have. I mean, for example, I just went, where was I? I was in New Orleans Temple, and they have this gigantic bed there that was as soft as a cloud. And, you know, and some sannyasis liked it. I said, get rid of this thing. And I pulled up not to brag or anything, but I just pulled the blanket, put it on the floor, and got ready to sleep on the floor. And of course they got very upset. And they got a harder bed for me. So everybody, just a humorous example. So everybody has a different need for comfort in this world. So, of course, very few people need like a 100-room house, unless you've got 100 children, or 100 wives. Oh my God. So very few. So we know what we need. Don't overdo it. That's called collecting too much. You know, we have these principles of things that cause difficulty in devotional service. Achahara prayasa cha prajapa nimagra jana sangha shaloyam cha. Collecting too much or over-endeavoring for mundane things. And you know what you need? And then use your available time, which is one of your fruits, and available resources, whether it's your intelligence or your physical work or whatever, for serving Krishna. And if you do that, I mean, everybody needs some maintenance. So we're not going to criticize you for keeping something for your own maintenance. It's practical. So, anyway, yes, that's what fruits mean. If you're giving that, then you're as good as a sannyasi. And if someone is a formal sannyasi, and he's not giving all the fruits, and he's engaged in over-endeavoring or over-collecting for his own self. I mean, we can collect for Krishna, obviously. You know, he maintains 5 different cars in his garage. You know, a Mercedes, a Tesla, one Tesla's all right. Mercedes, a Tesla, a Lamborghini, what else? Maserati. Then he's not a sannyasi, even if he's not married. You know, Lord Chaitanya came to teach what? Vairagya Vidya. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Shiksharta Eka Purusha Purana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Shatiradari Kripam Buddhir Yastvam Aham Prapadye. You know, we surrendered. This is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He came to talk, you know, whenever you know what you need, don't over-endeavor. You know, take care of yourself, take care of your family, fine. But the balance, you should do something Krishna conscious. You may not want to give money to the temple, that's all right. So then you purchase some books and you distribute some books. You do something for propagating Krishna consciousness. So that's what it means. That's a real sannyasi. So you're not any better or worse than someone who's taken the formal order of sannyas. I mean, obviously we have etiquette. If someone's taken the formal order of sannyas, then you offer obeisances. But the real point is someone who's dedicated everything to Krishna as a real sannyasi. So, other questions? Yep.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the wonderful class.
Hare Krishna.
So Maharaj, you were mentioning that in Prayojan stage, Guru reveals the relationship of the disciple with Krishna. So how does the Guru reveal the relationship of the disciple?
When one is when one is, somehow or other it's too loud, so we're getting feedback. So when the Guru ascertains one is ready, now that's a very high stage. It's not that, I mean, I'll give you an example in my own case. I'm not saying I'm ready. My own case, I joined the Krishna consciousness movement in 1971. I thought I was ready 1 week after I joined the Hare Krishna movement. I thought I had realized my spiritual identity. I was a brahmachari. I went and talked to the other brahmacharis and said, I realize we're all coward boys. You know, because we were all young men, obviously. Young men are not going to think that they're gopis. So, it'll be hard to, when you're macho and young and 19 years old, you're not going to think, I'm a gopi. So you project your own material conception upon the realm of the absolute truth. And so we think, yeah, I'm a coward boy, Hari Bol. I'm going to be assist Subal in the spirit. No. So one has to really be on a very high level in devotional service. I would say bhava. At least nishta, but nishta 24/7. Not just nishta. No, actually more than nishta. It should be ruchi or bhava. So it's not just, when we talk about nishta, it's not just I'm steady in my Krishna consciousness, but I'm steady 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 and 366 on leap year. So it's a very high level, and then one goes to the Guru and says, Guru Maharaj, I'm feeling very attracted to serving in a particular way, and then Guru Maharaj will facilitate that. But that's very high. Right now, I just worry about serving and helping Srila Prabhupada in his mission, and Prabhupada said deserve and then desire. So there's that interaction, and sometimes that may be Shiksha Guru. If you read Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Jaiva Dharma, it was more Vijay Kumar and Brajanath. These are two characters in the Jaiva Dharma. It was more their interactions with the Shiksha Guru that helped them develop fully their relationship in the spiritual world. So one has to be very careful not to jump. For example, none of us have the jumping capacity of Hanuman. If I thought I did and I tried to jump off the dome here, that would be it for me. So I can't jump. So Prabhupada would often quote this Bengali saying, big monkey, big belly, Ceylon jumping melancholy. So if you think you're going to jump to Ceylon, Sri Lanka, it's not going to happen. So we have to be careful. The bona fide guru, Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru can ascertain when one's ready. Sometimes people would go to Prabhupada and ask questions about intimate things like that to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada would answer, that question you do not need to ask. In other words, you're not ready for it. Like that. So don't try to jump. Anyway, I'm happy just serving Prabhupada's mission. Actually, I was listening to actually some classes, and Prabhupada said, we should desire to go back to home, back to Godhead, but when one becomes really pure, one doesn't desire to go back to Godhead anymore. He desires, Kita Janmaha Yutatu Yadas. I just want to be your servant. Mama as Lord Chaitanya says, Mama Janmani Janmanishvare Bhavatad Bhakti Ahoituki Twaye. So that's a very high stage. In the beginning, we get some impetus. I want to go back to Godhead, but that's about me. I want to go back to Godhead. So, but the pure devotees, Narayana Paraksarve Nokatashna Bibhyati Swarga Babarga Narakeshu Apitul Yartha Tarshna. That verse states that a pure devotee is wherever Krishna wants me to go, heaven, hell, back to Godhead. I will serve Krishna. It's the same to me. So let's just understand we're servants. And then it gets revealed when one actually has imbibed the service attitude completely. And it's nectar. I mean, you're happy even from the beginning, relief from material distress even from the beginning. I mean, you don't have to be a pure devotee to appreciate Radha Golokananda. Isn't it? That's the spiritual world. Shri Shri Radha Golokananda. Haribol. So, one more question before we end. The time is almost up.
Thank you for the wonderful discourse. This is a very basic question. Whatever she asked, when there is a saying, everybody knows that when somebody is ready, the guru will appear.
Yeah.
But how someone knows that the guru is about to appear? Is there any signal or any kind of a hint he or she gets? Or I'm just wondering because I don't know. So.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so one has to use their intelligence and ascertain, has the guru appeared? I mean, I'll give you an example of my own life. I had no spiritual knowledge before. I even had tried reading the Bhagavad Gita and other religious literatures, but it wasn't a translation given by a bona fide devotee. It was some scholar who had translated the Bhagavad Gita. And I just didn't know what to do or what the absolute truth was, so I started praying to God, just like generic God. Generic. It's true. God is a generic term for a particular category. So I started saying, God, please show yourself. So then I went back to my house room or wherever I was staying, turned on the radio, and then I heard Prabhupada chanting Hare Krishna. And then, I mean, there's so many things that happened that were, I guess, arrangements by Krishna. Brahmande Brahmate Konda Bhagavan Geet Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade by Bhakti Lata Beach. Brahmanda Brahmate. So the living entity is wandering, and by the mercy of Krishna, one gets Guru. And to me, it was very apparent. And then, another time, someone just handed me, a friend just handed me a Krishna book. So Prabhupada was coming to me in these different ways. And I sort of recognized it, but I didn't want to join the Krishna consciousness movement because the devotees were rather immature. So it took my meeting Prabhupada physically to get me to join the Krishna conscious movement. But I had accepted Prabhupada even before that. So, yeah. One has to be alert. Is Krishna sending Guru or is... And then you have to use your intelligence too. Samit Panish Rotrinam Brahmanishtam. Is this person fully serving Krishna? Is he a servant of his spirit? Prabhupada certainly fit all those different categories, those requirements. And is he repeating? Has he heard nicely? Repeating nicely according to time, place, and circumstance. So one has to use intelligence, and it's not just a sentimental thing. There's Guru. No, but one has to. It's not just emotional. One has to use their intelligence. Okay, I think we have to end now because it's time for prasadam. Am I right? So, thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Are you going to? Okay.
I don't know who's responsible.
So we have an announcement.
Hare Krishna. Just a few minutes. First of all, we'd like to say our gratitude to His Holiness Bir Krishna Goswami Maharaj. So we'll chant loudly, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. So again, I would like to thank everyone who has come here. Is anyone visiting here for the first time? Yeah, we already, thank you again. But besides them, because I see new faces. All right, so thank you. I'll hand it over to Mother Leela Shakti and then we'll head downstairs for prasadam.
Are you the family that was on Harinam yesterday that came out? Okay. All right. There you go. Also, just wanted to announce our Sunday feast sponsor it would be Jagannath Das in honor of his just recently departed mother. She was a resident of Durham, right? And you were at some point for a long time? Yeah. So he's a Durhamite, and now he lives in London, so he's here. And he sponsored the feast in her honor, so let's please pray for her departed soul. She was a very nice lady. I had the opportunity to meet her a couple times. She was a very, very sweet Southern lady.
And she left this world hearing the holy name.
Yes. And her glorious devotee son was with her when she left the world, and so she did hear the holy names.
Yeah. Back to Godhead.
Back to Godhead. Haribol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you very much. Yes, Prasadam is waiting downstairs. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Prabhupada.
Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnave Swalpa Punyavatam Rajan Vishwaso Naiva Jayate Sharira Vidya Jal Jodendriya Tahe Kal Jibe Fele Vishay Sagare Taramati Jivati Lobho Mai Sudurmati Take Jata Katin Samsare Krishna Bada Moy करी बार जीव जाय स्वप्रसाद नदी लो भाई से अन्नामृत खाओ राधा कृष्णा गुण गाओ प्रेमे दाखो चैतन्य निताय जय निमा जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। श्री श्री भगवत महाप्रसाद की जय।